The voice came from behind Angie. She spun around, surprised. There, covered in blood yet wearing cheery expressions, were Rudolph and Kyrie. Uncle Rudolph, Aunt Kyrie, I'm so glad you're After saying that much, George realized what his words meant, and his face twisted into an expression of shock and horror. Maria wasn't surprised. However, she showed no joy at having her answer proved correct. And as for Battler, Angie saw it. That terrible expression, one that she would never forget as long as she lived. It was a demon's smile. A hideous demon that she'd never see again twisted its face in a foul grin. And the truly horrible thing was that she saw it on her brother's face. Rudolph and Kyrie lifted up the guns they had been holding behind them. The barrels pointed at the foreheads of George, who staggered backwards, and Maria, who grinned as though she was beyond caring what happened next. There was a flash of lightning and a crack of thunder. Nothing more could be heard. Then, as George and Maria were snapped around by that roar, the strings holding them were snipped. The two dolls fell into puddles with a splash and stopped moving. Did Dad? Mom? All of this occurred right before Angie's eyes. Heh ha ha. Ee ha ha ha. Angie, who stood stunned beside them, wasn't visible to their eyes. They guffawed, overcome with laughter. Then, right in front of Angie, they started joking and complimenting each other on their kills so far. The three hideous faces, the faces of her family, made Angie want to cry and vomit at the same time, and she felt as though she would suffocate. Angie dashed away, covering her mouth. She wanted to escape the disgusting laughter coming from her beloved family as soon as possible. Then she slipped and fell face down in a puddle of mud. She didn't try to get up. In fact, she instead chose to cover her ears to block out the disgusting laughter that she could still hear. And as she did, from the shadows of the fences and bushes in this inky black rose garden, several dark things slipped into sight. Angie looked around in surprise to see eerie black shapes appearing from all over the garden and slowly surrounding her. It was a crowd of people with goat heads. Their outfits were all different. Some wore suits, while others were dressed casually. However, all of them were covered with darkness, and all of them had goats' heads. Angie, bewildered, accidentally let her hands fall from her ears. By now, she couldn't hear that disgusting laughter. However, in their place, she could hear the words spoken by the goats. Kyrie and Rudolph are the culprits. Battler is the culprit. Battler is the culprit. Battler, culprit theory. Battler's family, culprit theory. As the goats continued to mumble in eerie voices, they surrounded Angie and began to draw nearer. They all pressed around her, each of them naming Angie's family as the culprits. At first, everyone joined in on the Ava culprit theory. The sole survivor from the Rokkenjima got almost all the wealth to herself, so such a theory was only natural. Why was Ushiromiya Ava the only one who escaped to Kuadorian, and why did she refuse so stubbornly to talk about what happened that day? It was decided that the Ava culprit theory fit all of these facts. However, when Ava died of illness, and people learned that all the vast wealth she had created by unscrupulous means would go to Angie, public opinion, or rather the forgers, created and spread a new culprit theory. This was the Rudolph's family culprit theory. If it was normal for everyone to come to the family conferences, why was Angie the only one who didn't come this time? Did Rudolph's family have some reason for not bringing the young Angie with them? They did take Battler, but he wasn't Kyrie's son. Then, when it was revealed in some magazines that Kyrie's family had close ties to a massive gangster organization, all eyes suddenly gathered on Kyrie herself. The truth of how Rudolph had made a killing out of a fraudulent business practices was also laid bare, and almost immediately the couple became thought of as the most suspicious people on the island. Hideyoshi and Ava's company might have been heavy-handed at times, but at least it had operated within the law. However, the more Rudolph's company was investigated, the more dirt was dug up. Furthermore, testimony was dug up about various scandals involving party tickets from the time Rudolph and Kyrie were students, and it was clear that they were far more suspicious than Ava's family, and so, in a flash, the Rudolph's family culprit theory expelled the other conspiracy theories, including the Ava culprit theory, and reigned as the greatest of them all. It wasn't really because it was more plausible than the Ava culprit theory. They had just gotten bored of the old theory and wanted a new sensation. The goats seemed to bend and undulate. The sky rapidly turned white, becoming a ceiling lit by fluorescent lamps. The goats had changed completely, becoming the shapes of girls, wearing goat masks. All of the girls were wearing the same clothes. It was a uniform, the uniform of St. Lucia Academy. Did you hear? The real culprits were Rudolph and Kyrie. I heard. Yeah, I knew there was something suspicious about them leaving their kid behind. Didn't Ushiromi Ava say herself that she was poisoned to death? Isn't it obvious who was behind that? Must be nice for her. She gets her whole family's riches all to herself, right? I always knew that Rudolph's family culprit theory was right. I always thought there was something wrong with Ushiromi-san. Whisper, 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 giggle. Rudolph and Kyrie are the culprits. Isn't Battler a culprit too? Rudolph's family culprit theory. Rudolph and Kyrie are the killers. They tried to get the family wealth all to themselves, but Ava killed them back, and they failed. But in the end, Ushiromi Angie gets everything anyway, doesn't she? Rudolph and Kyrie are the culprits, of course. Rudolph's family culprit theory. Rudolph and Kyrie the Battler are the culprits. Rudolph and Kyrie and Battler are the culprits. They are saying your family were the culprits, Ushiromi-san. What do you think of that? Hey, what do you think? But in the end, you get all the family wealth to yourself, don't you? Even at the end, Ushiromi Ava never told you anything, right? I always knew that girl was suspicious. This also explains why Ava hated you so much. Hey, say something, tell us what you think. She really is a creepy kid, isn't she? Can't you at least tell us what you think of this theory, creep? A blade of air swept over me as I crouched down, holding my head. In a flash, the illusion of female students with goat heads that surrounded me shattered. I was curled up in a puddle in the rainy rose garden, surrounded by goats. But then those goats were also sliced in half, and the upper half slid to the side. It was like seeing a master swordsman slicing through a stick of bamboo. This way. The voice came from the black cat with the bell that had guided me here. Incredible that it can talk, but that doesn't matter now. I dashed after it. The goats shrank back. A hole opened up in the encirclement. The black cat dashed through it. As I hurried through it, the goats began to chase after me. Countless heavy footsteps thundered behind us. Well, where are we running to, Mr. Cat? The cat ignored my stupid question. Where are we running to? It's obvious, as far away as we can make it. However, there was an unbelievable number of goats. It wasn't just the group chasing us. There were probably goats hiding throughout the rose garden, and everywhere we went, a group of them would appear and block our path. Each time we bumped into them, we ran down a different path in this maze of a rose garden. So I didn't even know which direction we were running anymore. It couldn't be. We aren't running around in circles inside a massive crowd of goats, are we? When we ran into the arbor once more, I learned that my fears were justified. The 4 paths that led from the arbor were all blocked by a crowd of goats. Of course, the path that we had come down also was blocked by our pursuers. There was nowhere to go and nowhere to return to. We were finally trapped. Mr. Cat, what should we do? Well, we're surrounded. Master Skywalker, The black cat glared at the goats that surrounded us, standing on guard. It's all over for us. At that moment, I found myself floating in the air. A massive arm, large enough to crush my entire head, had grabbed my collar from behind. And you became Five Nights at Freddy'd. Before I could even think to cry out, I saw right in front of my face a pair of strangely glowing red eyes and a massive mouth with jagged teeth and a foul breath. The bite of 87. The mouth opened wide, and as though it was a separate creature, bizarre tongue stuck itself out. Then it spat words at me. Rudolph, Kyrie, and Battler are the culprits. Rudolph and Kyrie played dead, and Battler lied when he inspected them. Then one of the parents carried out the murders up until the second twilight and hid under the bed in Natsui's room. Battler killed Shannon and then assisted in the murders in the guest house. The other parent carried out the guest house murders. This is the truth. Then that gasping, gaping, smelly mouth slowly began to close over Angie's head. Counter. It's possible to form a logical theory other than the Rudolph's family culprit theory. A blue flash sliced off the top of the mouth that was trying to eat Angie's head, sending it flying. Could I have chosen that other option right off the bat, or what? I fell into a puddle along with the goat that was still grasping my collar, though there was nothing left of it above its chin. Without any hesitation, the goats stretched out their thick arms as though they had been given a second chance to snatch this prey for themselves, and they rushed towards me, and all of them spoke in unison. Anything besides the Rudolph family culprit theory would be impossible. Absolutely impossible. It's possible to form a logical explanation other than the Rudolph's family culprit theory. For example, a theory with George's family as the culprits is possible. A red flash and a blue line became blades of wind that passed over my head, doubly slicing the arms of a goat that tried to pick me up. I think the next goats dashed not towards me, but towards the black cat that was protecting me from behind, as I sat on my butt, staring up towards the rainy night sky. The massive goats were in the air right above me, fighting the black cat, or someone. A George's family culprit theory is impossible. George can't kill Shannon, so he can't be a culprit, and he can't lie when checking corpses. Why can't he kill Shannon? No, it is possible. A culprit is defined as one who murders. No one ever said they had to murder a character who appears in the story. In other words, if George committed murder outside the island sometime before this crime, he could be a culprit without killing anyone on the island, and it would be possible for him to lie. The deep red curves bit into the goat. Its massive body was knocked into the air, became about 7 logs of flesh, and was thrown into the rose bushes. This time, the terrible force of the attack shocked the goats. They faltered, shook, stepped back. Finally, I understood that red slice. It had come from a weapon that could draw red slashes. No, it also drew blue slashes just a second ago. It was a massive scythe that could speak both types of truth, red and blue at will. I looked up at the sky, then let my head hang down backwards. There was no black cat there.